So as Vibhu said, I have along with me Deepak, and we are UiPath MVPs from APAC region. I also work as an RPA analyst with Speridian Technologies Bangalore, and my co-host Deepak, he works with TransUnion Civil as a UAT lead. So before we get started with the main agenda, let me brief you on the format of the event. So as we progress, if you have any query, you can hold on with it. And once we're done with delivering what we have spare 30 minutes for Q&A, or you can just drop your query in the chat window and one of us will address it as we deliver the session. So I hope it's clear. And now let's get started. So we would be covering two very important product and very interesting product from the product suite of UiPath, which is UiPath Apps and UiPath Data Service. So talking about what is UiPath Apps. So as we know that there are countless ways to run an automation or automate the process. Some are determined by process logic, some are determined by design, some by domain, like they are differentiated based on domain or logic or design. So what role does this product, which is UiPath Apps, play in this thing? It provides a user-friendly interface which can accommodate more than one process, along with providing a smooth and friendly interface to the end user. And we see all of this interesting and creative Android and iOS app these days getting launched in the market, which definitely requires you to learn Java or some other programming language, or if you're designing an Android app, so how to use Android Studio. But what if you can create nearly same or exactly same sort of app with that friendly user interface with just drag and drop of activities and not requiring to have a coding knowledge? So the same thing UiPath apps fulfill, and it is supported in latest version of all major browsers, which is Edge, Chrome, and Firefox. So coming to what is UiPath apps, the first pointer is that it's a low-code application platform, which is thereby also providing you a user-friendly interface to all the different automation that we create. Now, what is exactly a low-code platform? So low-code basically means building a process or application, or say for that matter, apps, in a usual way, like with drag and drop of activities, the similar way we do it in Studio, that we drag and drop the activities and we get the job done. So similarly, with the drag and drop of activities, you can even design the apps, and then there are pre-built components which you can utilize. Say if you have to give user a button to log in, so you simply can drag in the label, you can simply drag in the text box, give a login button, drag a login button, and you can do it. So you need not to know a lot of HTML, CSS to actually design the app, to create the button, to create the label. So instead of all that, you can just drag and drop and do the job. So this quick way of dragging and dropping the components or connectors would lead to an increase in the speed with which we are building the app. So that's how the execution of apps become quicker, because we are not coding, as it's a low code application platform. Definitely it's giving a very user-friendly interface to the process we are deploying it on orchestrator. It supports multiple process runs. So as of now, what we do is we create a process in UiPath Studio, then we deploy it and we schedule it, or we run it trigger based. But apps provide us an interface wherein if we have different 5-6 processes, we can together run all of it with the help of apps. And we also have an option in the apps. We'll see that when we would be doing the demo, that there's an option that we can opt for a synchronous run, or we can opt for an asynchronous run. So that's how we can run multiple processes at the same time. So usually low-code solution facilitate the development of application by connecting it with third-party APIs. But UiPath not only connects with the third-party APIs, but because it is one of the product of UiPath suite, so it provides easy connectivity to all other different products as well, wherein you can leverage the power of Studio as well, you can leverage the power of AI Center as well, you can leverage the power of data service as well. So that's an advantage that UiPath apps have over any other product, which actually allows us to connect or call a third-party API. So not just the third-party API, but we would also be able to leverage all the products that we have in the UiPath product suite with a very easy integration possible, because there are activities dedicated already available in the studio. And obviously that as every process takes input and output parameter. For example, we develop an app for say a customer service executive who is actually looking to all the requests that's being raised or ticket that is being raised. So we provide our, you can say whatever problem we have, we provide it. Then they create the ticket and they provide us with a ticket number. So we give some input, we give some information about the complaint that we have, and then they process that particular complaint and give us a ticket number. So that's how the input and output parameter works in the UiPath apps. So whatever input and output we as of now do with Studio, that we have input argument, we have output argument, all those can even be binded very easily with the apps. So that's the power of UiPath apps. Moving further. Now, basically, mainly there are two components of app. The first is apps and the other is App Studio. So app is nothing but a service which is used to execute apps. So when you go to cloud.uipath.com, on the left side bar of UiPath Automation Cloud, you will see an option of UiPath apps. In case you do not see it, we can go to the admin console and we'll have to enable the service. So we'll enable UiPath apps, and then we would be able to see on the left side bar, we would be able to see UiPath apps where we see our tenant name written, then we see AI center and all of these written. So on the same left sidebar, we'll even get an icon of UiPath apps. And then obviously, depending on your permission defined at app level, you can either run the app that is present or you can edit it. So you even have that facility to give only required access to a certain set of user. The second component is App Studio, which is the tool that is used to design the app. So it's like UiPath Studio, but it's a web-based thing. So it's a web interface, and advantage is that it requires no installation and it is available, easily available from your browser. And it follows what you see is what you get approach, which is WYS, IWYG. So that is whatever you see in the App Studio, you can very easily preview. There is a preview button. Even if you drag a single button and you want to see how it's going to look when I go and publish my app, so you can just simply click on preview and it's going to show you how it's going to look. So that's why we say that it follows what you see is what you get, ready to deploy application. So you keep on adding, dropping the components, dropping the control, and keep on seeing that how it's actually going to look when you deploy. And accordingly, that would actually help you in designing your app. One more thing that I would like to add is that UiPath apps are PWAs, that is, they are progressive web apps, which means you can pin them to your device home screen and it can be launched standalone, thereby giving you a near native experience without having to install anything. And with definitely, as I said, with App Studio leveraging all of the capabilities of UiPath application platform, one can develop an entire range of application from very simple process to calling multiple process and building a really complex application. So that's the power of it, that it leverages all of it that is present within the product suite of UiPath for us to build a very complex application as well as a very easy application. So now coming to controls. So when we talk about App Studio, there are mainly three different types of controls that we have. Controls are nothing. They are just building blocks of app. You can say components that actually build up the entire studio. And we can add them to canvas. So we see a blank screen here when we go to apps. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have all the controls. So we can just drag and drop all the controls to our main canvas and we can customize them and connect them to our automation. So the first control is input control. It allows human users to provide an input to the application. It could be either a button to start a process or a text field to enter the email address or enter our password. So any control that is actually asking our input and we have to provide some information or feed in some information comes under input control. It's pretty clear from the name itself. So is the display control. It displays the output of an event run. Say a ticket number is created. We're actually saying that, okay, your ticket number is this. Or on any text box, if we see a placeholder where it is written, okay, here you have to enter your name, here you have to enter your email address, here you have to enter your phone number, so any placeholder sort of thing, which actually guides the user where to enter what. So such sort of control falls under display control. Last but not the least, container control. It's used to logically group or separate different input control or different display control. Suppose we have this customer based thing, the ticketing thing. So once a user comes to us, suppose it's related to telecom industry, we got a call from user, and now we can identify the user with the phone number itself. So once we see the phone number, if we design an app that as we enter the phone number, all the data gets fetched in from the data service. So if it's logically separated, that okay, in one section of the screen, we are saying that all the last 10 calls he has made, or all the last 5 recharges he has done, or the last 5-10 incoming calls he has made. So if we are actually able to see all of it logically separated at once on a screen, it really becomes very easy for the executive to take an action or to provide any information to the user is asking for. So that's what container control does, that it's logically, it groups or it separates different input or display control. Now, once we have control, each control has its own property. So input control will have its own different set of properties. Display control will have its own different set of properties. So now, because we have seen what are controls, let's also see what are the properties they're dealing with. The first being the general property. So this category configures how the control is displayed. So its function, the parameter to which it is bound, its state, whether it should be hidden or it should be disabled. And every control has its own property. When I say that it should be hidden or it should be displayed, you must have come across such scenarios wherein when you enter something, then there's another text box coming over to the screen. Unless you do not enter something, you do not get. Or you can see in many of the web pages, you must have seen cascading drop down, wherein when you select the state, then corresponding districts of that state gets populated into the next drop down. So that's how it works. So we make it hidden or we make it disabled, or based on some rules, we actually populate the next one. So those such sort of properties come under general category, that those are the general properties we are defining in the functions, we're defining in the parameters, we're defining in the state. Next is events. So this category allows the configuration of events and rules involving the control. Say like triggering a process. So as we say, we can actually call any process that is being developed on UiPath Studio from the UiPath apps itself. So once we click on some button, a process is actually getting triggered, or new web page is getting opened, or a new screen of the app is getting opened. So such sort of things comes under events, that whenever user performs some action, there is a rule laid behind it and it gets triggered, or something happens, value changes, or entry to the database is made, or something is fetched from data service and displayed to us. So those all things are considered as events. Then styles, it actually configures the look and feel, like the margin, the color, the border, the font size, all of this to make it look fancy, to make it look presentable. So these are the properties of styles, like they come under the style property. So we did talk about events and rules. So events are recorded whenever user interacts with an app or control. I click somewhere here, or I enter some text, or I click on some button. So those are the events. Whatever I'm performing is an event. And whenever I perform any event or any user performs any events, rules are set. So as it is written here, that if X happens, then perform Y, where X is an event and Y is a rule. So when I say, okay, submit deposit, then actually a process runs in the background, which actually submits the data that I have put in. So that's how events and rule work. And as for me, this is the backbone of the entire UiPath apps, the events and rules, which actually makes everything easy. Because of events and rule, you can call multiple processes at the same time to ultimately deliver a really complex process or a really complex product at the end if you want to. This, as per me, is the backbone. wherein how well you configure everything on every click or every event that the user performs is actually ultimately defines how well your app is configured or it's designed. So these are some of the events. So the event name is clicked on, and on what control these events can be called. Definitely you're gonna click on a button, or you can click on a header, or you can click on a label, icon, or image. If you click on drop down, so that's you're selecting the value, but actually not the desired event. So whenever you click on all these control, a click on event can be created. And whenever a click on event is created, if you want to perform some action, which is ultimately the rules, then you can even define that. Similarly, the value changed event can be performed over a checkbox, a date picker, a drop down, a slider, a switch, a text area, text box, and list. So these are the three main events as of now present in UiPath apps, and all these other controls which fall under one event or the other. The other one is loaded. So whenever a page loads, suppose whenever the user is logging into your app, on the home page, if you want to trigger something or you want to show something to the user, then that's a loaded event, which you can only perform when the page is loading or whenever a table is loading. So these are the events. Now, whenever these events are performed, there are certain rules that you can perform, which is this. So mainly there are 5 rules that can be performed. First being open a page, which opens a page of the app as a popover or as the content of the page. When I say popover, it means you'll have a main page, and above it, you'll see a small page, one more small page. So that's a popover. And if you want the entire new page to be open, replacing the current page, then that is as the content of the page container. So there are both the ways you can open the page. The second is close popover or bottom sheet. So the popover that you opened, which is a small page above your main page, you can even close it. Then show message, wherein you've submitted something and you want to show that, okay, your ticket has been created, your ticket ID is this. So you can show the message. Then you also have an option that only when the user clicks on okay, you want to hide the message, or the message disappears automatically after 5 seconds or 10 seconds, 15 seconds. All this is configurable and you can do it easily. Then comes show and hide spinner, which is when you're running a process, if you want that the user does not interact with the app, does not click here and there because a process is running at the background, then you can show a spinner. So spinner is nothing but that loading sign you see, that circle which keeps on rotating, or that time thing that you see, the loading one. So it actually disables the entire app and the user has to wait until the process is completed. So that's show and hide spinner. So whenever the process starts, you can show the spinner. Once the process is completed, either you get an output from the process to display to user, say the phone number, a ticket ID, or anything, then you can hide the spinner so that now the user can resume interacting with the app. The fifth one is start process, which actually starts any automation process that is being deployed on the orchestrator with the help of apps. Moving further, coming to data service. Now that we have covered this thing, the apps, we'll move on to the data service. One more thing is there is also one important thing when we deal in with apps, which is data binding. So on the presentation layer, we have our app so that we see from our screen a user-friendly interface. So that's a presentation layer, how our app would look like. Like you've added the control, now you can control the input and output parameter of the process. So whatever input and output parameter is there in your process, you can actually bind it to some controls or some events on your app. And that is actually data binding, wherein you're connecting your app to the process present in UiPath Studio. So that is also a very important thing, because otherwise, if you do not bind, it's like two different entities running on its own, giving you no output. Only when you bind the input and output parameter is when you get the desired result on the app from the presentation layer. Okay. Now coming on to what is data service, what role does it play? So data service basically offers the capability of a relational business object or say database. We all are aware of database, that we can store the information in it, we can retrieve information for it, we can edit, update, insert, perform all those operations. So for the same thing, we have data service. Only the difference is that obviously we can even integrate with database. We can integrate UiPath with any database, be it SQL or non-SQL. But now UiPath has its own integrated storage sort of thing, which is data service. And there are main 4 components of data service, which is entities, fields, relationship, and records. So I'm going to relate one by one all these 4 things to the database that we have, the relational database, so that it's pretty clear and easy to relate. So like we have table in our database, wherein we define the column, we define in the data type that it would be varchar or it would be int. So the same role entities play in data service. So it's composed of field of various type. Like in database, we have table, which is composed of columns of different data types. So table in database is exactly equal to entities in our data service. Then we have records. So records are single occurrence of the data contained in an entity. So like once we create a table, we insert rows, which actually contains the data. So rows in database is exactly equal to records in data service. So record can be created, it can be manipulated, it can be queried both manually and automatically. So if you want to query it manually, you can directly go to data service, open the entity and see the record. Or you can call it via using the activities from UiPath Studio. Coming to fields, so the structure, the data inside entities. So fields are nothing but the columns of database. So we define, say, suppose we've created a table containing 5 columns. So similarly, we can create an entity having 5 fields. As for data service, there are certain system built-in fields also, and some user created fields. Now we have created 5 columns, but the data service will have 9 or 10 columns, say, because there are certain default fields that are created, which is a unique ID is created for every record, then created by owner name, updated by, updated time. So all these things are automatically created for every record that we create in data service. So this can be considered as a difference, a major difference between the database and the data service. For data service, there are 5, 6 fixed default values that are always created for every record that we create. And if I talk about different data types that are present, so for database, we all know, but for data service, I think we can have text, we can have number, we can have a yes or no field, we can have date time, and we can have relationships. So when I talk about relationships, if you guys can remember, with database, we have this primary key, foreign key, wherein we can link 2 tables. So similarly, if we talk about data service, we have similar concept named relationship. Say that a particular field can only hold a reference to another table. So you can create your entity, create your field for each entity, and set field type as relationship, where that particular thing is going to refer to some other record of some other table. To definitely use data service, it's not by default present with system activities or automation activities. You need to install a package from managed packages, which is data service activities pack. And then that pack has a lot many activities. You can even upload files, like not just the data, but if you want to upload a PPT or an Excel or a Word, that also gets stored in data service. You have dedicated set of activities. So it's very pretty easy to, insert any sort of record to data service, retrieve any record from data service. Suppose you're creating an employee database, so you can store employee photo as well with all other details in data service. Talking about the benefits, so it's secured. All data is at one place. It's integrated with Studio. And you can update the record, create record. It's more like a, DB integrated seamlessly with Studio. You can define rich metadata like relationship, rules, attributes for your entities, and even store document, as I said, associated with the defined entities. So that's all are the advantages that you get over database when when it comes to data service. And obviously you need not to remember any query that, okay, insert into this, or for update you need to remember any query that alter table. So all these you need not to remember because it's a no code data modeling and storage capability, following the motto of UiPath that it's a low code platform. So rather you writing the query or remembering the query syntax, they've provided activities so you can easily do it. So let's head on to the demo. I'll pass it on to Deepak to showcase us the demo. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you, Anmol. I'm presenting my screen. Hope you can see it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, Deepak, we can see it.
Yeah. Hi everyone, this is Deepak here. So let's move to the demo of UiPath Apps and data services. So once we're logging into the cloud.uipath.com, we are able to see this homepage. From here, you will see different aspects are available, like downloading the UiPath Studio, or different licenses are available based on your login credentials. So post that when you want to create your apps, navigate to the app sections and you will find it out. This display is here. So right now I've created one application here. Because of that, it's showing this. For you, this is not available. Only build a new application tab is available here. So in data services, when we are jumping into the data services, it is not clearly visible when you log in it first time. So for enabling, you just have to go to here and select your tenant setting. Sorry. Go to admin, and from this you will find it out tenant sections, and click on this and click on tenant settings. You can disable any of the actions whatever you are looking forward to work it. So it's checked for me. Because of that, it's showing here. If it is not checked, considers checking it and click on save. Once you do this activity, you are able to see data services are also available inside your login credentials. So moving to the UiPath apps, UiPath app is a very good functionality which is provided by the UiPath, where we can create our own apps without any code or without a big amount of code. So let's see how we can do that. So for building app, we need to click on this and enter the name of the app, whatever we are looking forward to create it. So let's say if we want to build a calculator applications, we are giving here as a just a calculator app here, and now it will navigate us to main page where we will design our application. Here you will find it out the separate tabs are available. You can add different pages, processes and control. It's totally dependent on your requirements, which type of application you're creating. For me, it's single page application, so I can manage all these contents should be available here, and I'm able to create it. Here you will find it out your login destinations, then notifications tab, publishing. So once you're ready or you're done with the creation of app, just click on publish and your app will be published inside your login credentials. You can provide the permissions which all you users can use it this apps in their specific use. For building the applications, Java provided different aspects or different controls, where we can click on add new control and we will find it out these four options, which I think already covered by the Anmol on the definition of it. Let's use it. So for using purpose, let me add here one label. Select this and drag and drop it to here. Now your label has been created for you. Just rename it. So let me add demo calculator. Now you can pass it the event value here. Value binding is basically if you are providing the code or the instructions to follow this label to navigate to some other page or to work any particular actions which you are looking forward from the studio or from the orchestrator. If you have deployed your code into the orchestrator, you can provide the value binding here. So that's a mandatory requirement if your code is deployed in your orchestrator, and UiPath apps and orchestrator should be in the same instance. Otherwise, you will not find it out. This options to be directly do it or the directly bind the code for your UiPath apps code. Now when we want to customize it, like changing the style of this text or changing the some font style, let me add it to header 2. Now you can see text is increased. We can also do some other activities like background color. If we want to add some background color, we can add it through this. Now you can see background color is added. So whatever color you are looking forward to add it, simply select this and a color will be added. If you want to move it to the vertical or horizontal layout sections, you can also select it from here. Border is also available. You can add a specific border to your level. Let me add 1 pixel here. Now border is added. Font style, you can also change the font style of your text. It means it's very easy to customize each and everything. You don't need to write any CSS code for designing, or you don't need to write any JavaScript code for doing any activity or events. It's very easy. You can also add padding, margin. These all components are very easy to use it. So let's use some other control as well. Now here we have used control. Let me add some container where we can enter our input value. So container is basically when we are adding any specific container, it will insert or take out the data input from the user and act accordingly based on their actions. So let me add some border here so that we can clearly view it. 5. Now you can see body is added to this container. Let's add some other control like buttons. So button is here. Now you can see button is added. Let me change the text of button like plus symbol. I'm not doing anything. I'm just dragging and dropping the activity, and we are making our calculator to be useful. So you can also copy and paste this type of activity and place it to your next to this. So here, let me change it to minus. I'm just copying and pasting. Then one more for multiplication. Now you can see 4 options are added here. Now we want some other buttons to be added, and in the display sections we can also use some other container like header, images, label, list, tables. We can also use the table activity as well. Icons is also available where we can use it and uh, for good looking of our apps. So let me add some more control here for adding number. You can also select your hidden properties or disable property where you want to hide any of your button. You can hide it from here. In event sections, you can create your own rules, how your button will work. So if you want to add if then else conditions, you can also use it to add any of specific control inside your applications. So when once a user will enter a detail here and click on several different tabs and press on equal to tab, then our calculator will calculate the value. So basically we are just dragging and dropping the content to our panel, and we are calculating or we are getting output from this app. Styles, in style sections we have border, font, margin, size. If you want to increase the size of your text, or if you want to keep it height and width on specific requirement, we can also do that. There's several other options like minimizing size, maximizing size. We can also select it. So once our calculator is done, simply click on preview, where you can see your apps is available on the cloud uipath.com inside your credentials, and this will looks like your exact application, how it is going to be live in the productions if you are deploying into production. So based on that, if you're okay with this app, simply click on publish, and your application will be published for you. So once you will navigate to the main tab, you will find it out this application is available here. So this is a process where we are creating, even you can provide the group permissions. You want to keep it only for the owner. So only owner can see it. If you want to add the permissions for different users, the different users will see it. Or you can also create a group inside that you can publish it. If I want to download or export this app, I just simply click on export, and this component will be downloaded inside my local folder. We do have different options like cloning, sharing the data. If we want to share the link with someone, we can simply click and share it. Even you can share the copy URL, or you want to delete it, you can simply delete it. So on clicking on build a new app, we can create a new application inside the UiPath. Let's see how we can import it. For importing, we just have to provide the any specific name and click on import from the file. So right now I've just downloaded this applications. I'm importing same application for demo purpose. Now you can see this get currency converter applications we have imported successfully. Without doing anything, if we are already ready with our apps, we don't need to write the code of our specific app. Same way, we can import it for some other applications. In down the line, if we want to change this app, or change the customize the UI, or changing the structure of our application, we can also do that. Simply go to the apps, select this on edit, or if you want to run, you can run it from here. If you want to add it, simply click on a pencil icon, and you're able to see this component is available. You can edit it from here onwards. So this is how easy we can create the simple app and move it to the productions whenever it is needed, which is just drag and drop activity. We just have to define our rules, whatever rules we are looking forward to work for any specific button. We do have multiple input options like button checkbox, date picker, drop down, sliders, rich, text area, text boxes. So if you want to add any specific text box, we can simply drag and drop, and we can use it the bindings. We can also provide the limitations or rules, how many length we can expect in this text box. Default text, what is default text we are looking for? You can add it. So let's say a demo I'm adding here. So this is the default text will be available for my text box. If you want to add any specific description to this, you can add it from here. Now, if you want to create the rule for any specific component, you can create it. So this is all about UiPath apps and how we can create it. And if we want to move it to the orchestrator, definitely we will need the integration with the orchestrator should be available. So let's move to the data services and see how we can create the data services. And we'll see at the end one example where I will show you the complete flow of how we can use the UiPath Studio with data services example. So data services provides you additional storage capability for intelligent automation project, so that we can integrate your business data with UiPath different components on the fly. We must be thinking why we need additional storage capability for storing RP project data, while we will use a connect, dump, export data to the relational database. no SQL database file, or even on cloud storage, then why do we need additional layer of data services for consuming the data in the RPA projects? So let me give you one example here. So most of the processes when we are designing follow a simple workflow which takes data from queue, work on queue item in linear way to complete the task either through completions or success. However, there could be more complicated scenarios like multi-steps process where automation needs to be worked in different chunks or hand holding is required between human in loop and robot. For example, if you are working on bot A and perform some tasks in Salesforce applications or different other CRM related applications to create an entry, waits for human to complete the next steps, and then bot B resumes the tasks based on the status. In this case, we can create two related entity is calling as here entity is like a date or table where in this entity to track the status of work done by bot A and perform some status task accordingly. So if bot A have not completed their work, bot B will never starts. So let's think about an e-commerce operator where operators are selling the product on different platforms and requests are received throughout the day from omnichannel which contains multiple structured and unstructured data set such as invoice, purchase return, customer complaint, sales order, and many other items. Though the use of multiple related entity, all different kind of requests can be processed effectively and within SLA adherence without putting much data exposed to RPA. How we can achieve this? So we can plan this activity and work accordingly so that we can include these type of data on our cloud service so that we cannot miss at any point of time. So let's see how we can create our data services. So for creation of data services, you can see here I've already created some set of entities which is available inside my folder. So let's create and click new create a new entity. This is type of data set where we are creating a name of the data sets. We can also provide the descriptions of your table or descriptions of your database. So let me add your products demo descriptions. Let me add just demo here. Okay, now I can see this entity has been created. Select on this. So once we'll select on this, these all our column items are by default available. This is by default system generated columns is created when you create any entity, and this is not at all customizable. We can also not delete, not possible to delete this type of uh, custom related by default available components. So creating a new field, simply click on create field, and here you can add your components required. So let's understand by using one use case where we want to create a column name for each of the sections like product ID, product name, supplier ID, quantity per unit, unit price, unit in stock, units order, and order level discontinuous. We want to create each and every column depends on their data types. So creating this, simply we just have to copy the name of this column and paste it to here. And here we are looking for the numbers. So we can select numbers from here. If we want to mark this component as a required, so if at the time of insertion of data, if people will not or person will not enter product ID, that should not be acceptable. So we can select the required field here. More details, we can add the maximum value and minimum value. If we are expecting at least two numbers or two fields should be available each of the data, then we are marking here as a minimum value 2. Maximum value we can keep till 10 or 20. Here you can find it out default value. If by the user data is not provided, then it should enter default value. We can also add descriptions, and again this you can keep it for the role based field access, or you can keep it for the public. Post entering all this field, click on save, and you can see this product ID is successfully created, where you can see display name. Name is basically this, which is used for the calling. Type, we have selected number. Required, yes. I did not enter a description because of that, it's showing blank, and you can see at what time it is created, few seconds ago. So let me refresh this. Definitely it will update 1 minute, few seconds, it's still not done. You can see here 2 to 3 is updated from here. Now, if we want to add the data inside this entity, then I need to click on add, and I will add the product ID from here. So right now we are not doing manually from here, we'll do it from our bot. Let's create some other fields as well. Create new fields, take out the data from here. So name I am keeping here as a text, and this is not a required field. I'm just entering these three fields and clicking on save. Supplier ID. ID is again a number value. So I am giving here as a number. Save. Quantity per unit. We can keep text as well. Then unit price, number, and here you can add decimal value. Till what decimal value you are looking for, 2 or 3, should depend on your process or your requirement. 3 I am keeping here. So unit in stock is definitely a number value. Here, if you want to add the date field, you can also enter the date and select on date and time, which will gives you date and time value when you want to enter it. You can also provide the default value. You want to keep it as a MMDDYY format or DDMMYY format. It totally depends on your requirement. So I'm going with the default value. Now, if you want to enter some yes or no related components like stock is available or not, something like that. So is stock is available, we can add this field, and here you can select yes or no. So here you cannot enter other than this value, which is a boolean type of value. Now you can see all of the active entities in sorry all of the fields are added, whatever we have created as of now. This will becomes our first entity, or we can say that first table, where we are using products demo. Now if I will select this, you can see here I've already created product ID, product name, quantity per unit, supplier ID, unit price, unit in stock, and these all are created by system itself, system built-in field. So let's see, by using this table or this entity, how we can use it in UiPath Studio. Let's jump to the UiPath Studio, where I've already created one flow chart where you can see I'm just calling this Excel file, which is the name product info.xls. Here you can see the file name is product info.xls. I'm just reading the sheet one. Now I'm just giving the conditions like product table dot rows dot count is greater than 0. If it's satisfied with condition, then it will move to the for each row, where it will read each and every row and enter these details into my data set. So I've added few of the fields for the assignment, like product ID, then product name, and then the supplier ID. I'm just adding three fields in my data sets, and which will be entered in my entity we have just created now. So let me go to the data part. Now you can see all these rows are already entered. Let me delete all this and then we will see it is working or not. Yes, I deleted everything. There is no data available inside my this data sections of products demo. Now let's run this. The Excel was open, because of that showing an error. Let me close this and run it again. So before running this, whenever we are creating any data services or the entity, first we have to go to manage entity. From here, we have to refresh this page, and once refreshment is done, we have to select which entity we are working. So right now I'm working on products demo. So I will select this. There's no component is updated on the products demo. Because of that, it's showing disable save options. But if you will update anything from these tables which is already selected, we can see the save button is enabled for us. I've just created products demo 2, which is also available, but I'm not using right now in this sections. So whenever we are coding in UiPath Studio, we have to install this package uipath.dataservices.activities from the manage package panel, and we are okay to go ahead to use data services in UiPath. So let's run it again. Now execution is completed. Let's refresh this page and see data is applicable or not. Now I can see, sorry, all the data which is available in my Excel sheet is uploaded in data services. So if I will run on second time, it will upload same data again, because I did not provided redundancy component here. So whenever we want to update any specific component, we do have to provide redundancy. A duplicate data should not be available. So let me run it and show you. And most important part, whenever we are running any data service related component, make sure your studio should be connected with your cloud or with your orchestrator if your component is deployed on your orchestrator. And the second thing, we need to refresh our manage entities panel. Now let's go to and refresh the page again. you can see second set of data is available here. So you can see product ID 1 2 and supplier ID is 2 2. Means now starting from data is always starting from 2, so you can see 2 2 and ending till 8, like Lenovo Legend 5i, and now again it is uploading the same data. So this is the duplication of data is created when we are running the same script again and again, if we have not provided any scripting related to our redundancy component. So this is how we can create our data services or entity and use it in our UiPath Studio. So that's all about UiPath apps in Studio and their data service components. Anu?
Yeah. Hi, Deepak. Yeah. Okay. So I think somebody asked Balakrishna. I hope Balakrishna now it's clear to you that how can we connect process created in UiPath Studio to UiPath apps. If it's not clear, then let us know. We'll just walk you through once again. You can unmute yourself and answer, or you can reply on the chat. Okay. Now, because we've already exceeded 1 hour, like we are almost done with 1 hour, we can take up any question. Also, there is also a functionality of UiPath apps that you can run it as an executable file, like Windows executable. Okay, sure, Balakrishna, we can show it once again. So, Deepak, would you like to show it or should I show it?
Yeah, sure. I will show. No, sure. Basically, you're looking for the connectivity, right?
Yeah, so he is asking that how can we call the process of created in Studio from the apps?
Or data services. He is looking for the data services or the apps.
I think the apps, let me just read out. So he's asking how app and Studio interacts.
Could you please take it, Anmol?
Yeah, sure, sure. Okay.
Should I stop presenting?
Yes, please. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Deepak, can you confirm it once?
Yes.
Okay. So it goes this way that suppose we have created a process over here in UiPath Studio. We publish it. So we can publish it from here. And then this particular package is available in our orchestrator. So once we have it in our orchestrator, we go to this thing, apps. If you click on this plus icon, you see option here to connect a page, to create a process, add a process, or add a control. So if you click on add a process, you'll be able to see the two folders that I have on my orchestrator, which is my personal workspace and a modern folder. So you can see on my personal workspace, I have this particular process that I've created. So if you see in the orchestrator, I have created fee payment. Once I publish it, it is available in the orchestrator, and then it is over here. So I'll select the one that I've created in the modern folder. As of now, it's already added, so you'll not be able to see it. Otherwise, it comes like unselected. So I'll show this thing. So suppose if I've selected this, I'll be able to see all the input arguments that I'm taking and the output that I'm producing. Once I select it, if I scroll down over here, you'll be able to see processes here. So you can see there are 3 processes already available here. Now, once the process is available here, how do we actually go on binding it is, we can click this particular text box. We go to general, we can see value binding. So we are binding the in student ID that we have actually created here in the arguments. Over here, you can see in student ID. So we are binding this variable directly to the app. Similarly, we are going to bind all these 4 values So where you see this pin sort of icon, it means there is a value binded to it. Once we have binded all the value, we need to call this process. And we will call this process once the user click on this button. So we can select this button, we can go to events, we can go to edit rule, and we're gonna call this process here. So it's nothing but you click on here, you get an option of start process. Then you click on here, you get all the three processes that are there. You can drag a process here and that's it. You get an option that you want to run it in an attended mode or unattended mode. You can select any of it. And then once you've completed, you can display a message. Say you've selected, okay, show message. Now you can show anything. You can show, okay, process completed. So you can show anything like this. So that's how you can bind the process of this created in Studio to UiPath apps. Okay, so we have a question from Pumal. Can we use this for Android cross-platform? No, that feature is as of now not available. Maybe with the release coming up, we can have it. But definitely you can run it as a Windows executable file. I'll quickly showcase how you can do that. So for that, what you have, this is a already created folder structure sort of thing that you can say. It's public and is available on GitHub. So this has been created by UiPath and it is being managed by UiPath. Ivan Cohen is the product owner of UiPath Apps. I'll paste the link over here. So from here, you can download this UiPath Apps client sample. Now to run it as an executable file, there are three simple steps that you need to perform. If you open this main file, which is actually this one, any app that you have created on your UiPath apps, if you want to run it as a Windows executable file, all you need to do is you need to change this particular URL, const runtime. I'll just zoom it. So where you open this JS file, you see const runtime URL over here. You need to replace the value with the production URL of your app. How can you get the production URL? If you go to your apps, once you publish it, so as of now, this is already published. But once you publish it, you can come back here. You can click on the app name. You go down, you'll get your production URL from here. So you copy the production URL from here. To get the production URL, you need to make sure that you've published your app. Once you publish your app, this URL gets automatically created. You just need to copy paste the URL over here. If you want to change the icon of your app, you have an option to do that as well. So over here, icon.png, where is it written? So you can create an app and just pass the icon of that particular image over here. If you want to set the height, width, all these things, you can set all of these here. Once you have done this, you need to have Node.js installed. Once you've installed the Node.js, I already have it installed. Open your command prompt and navigate to this particular directory where you are having app client sample master. So it's D and then I'll give CD. So I am now inside the directory which has this thing. The three commands that you need to execute is the first is npm install. So once npm install is done, then the second command that we need to execute is npm run start. So we'll wait for this command to be executed. And as we execute this particular command, you can see that it has automatically launched the UiPath apps and it is loading my app. Once this is also executed, then the last command that I need to execute is npm run dist. But because I have already executed the three programs, so I have it ready. So this is how I can run the app as an executable file. As in when you execute these three commands, you'll be able to see the executable file present in the dist folder. So inside dist folder, you can see UiPath Apps sample setup 1.2.0 present. So by just executing these three simple commands, you can run UiPath Apps as a Windows executable file. Okay, so we have question. Can we use the production URL for the public user access? To use the production URL with anybody, if you want to share it publicly, all those who are actually accessing your app need to have access to the tenant of orchestrator. as well as to your app. Like you can give them a permission, a owner permission, only permission to run it or to edit it. So they need to first be added to your tenant, only then they can view it. Otherwise they cannot.
So coming back to the previous questions, which is asked by the PUML, right? Can we use this
Yeah.
Android? So if we have the customizable link where you can call the XAML file or the UiPath executable file into the Android, that is possible. You can use it in the Android app as well. So, but again, you need to take care of each and every activities and relation inside your Android, which will makes your efforts to be increased when you're calling UiPath apps into Android application. Do
Okay.
you have any other question?
Okay, yes, we have another question. No. Guys, if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Looks like we do not have any other question. So before we wind up the session, I would request you guys to please switch on your camera so that we can have a picture together. You can take 2 minutes, 3 minutes to be in a position to switch on your camera. We can wait.
Not an issue, Srinivas. Guys, can we enable our camera? It will take just 30 seconds to take out the screenshot. I think Reshadar is not interested to enable our camera. Yeah. 5 faces are up. David, Chitkala, Nandini, Pratik, Sojanya, Tanveer. Yes, Raju, you can also use it input as a user in UiPath apps. Others, could you please enable your camera so that we can take one picture? Okay, I think we are good. Thank you, everyone.
You clicked it, Deepak?
Yes. Okay, thank you everyone for joining the sessions. I think we don't have any questions, so we can drop off here.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining the session.